will encounter when you're trying to control the crucifix position. This is your opponent locking his hands together. Many of the more effective means of getting out of that crucifix involve this crucial step. So we should be able, at will, to be able to unlock an opponent's locked hands. So if we have the back crucifix position, good, and we're working from here. One of the most annoying things that can happen is your opponent closes his hands, and then from here, it's usually pretty easy for him to come up on top of you and turn into you. So what are we supposed to do when someone goes to lock their hands? First, understand something. If I put my shin in the crook of his elbow, it's very easy for him to bring his hands together. The most destructive kind of hand clasp that your opponent can use is one where he locks over your knee. You do not want this happening, okay? When he locks over the knee, it pins my knees together and makes any kind of crucifix work very difficult. So the first and arguably the most important method to get out of these situations involves us slipping the knee. How do we slip a knee? We use a hand assist. We put our hands over our training partner's hands and we slip our knee out and turn it outwards. So we create a situation where your shin is in the crook of his elbow, not your knee. There is a world of difference between this and this. Here, you can reliably break your opponent's hands apart. Here, you really can't do much. It's very difficult. So when we play this position, we're going to put a hand over our training partner's hands and slip our knee. The further we slip out, the happier we are. Now, as our opponent goes to lock on in these situations, the first method we're going to look at involves us going over our training partner's head and locking the figure of four. Now we're just going to push with the strength of our two legs, and we're going to pull in the opposite direction to break the grip. As soon as we do so, we bring our hand back into the standard position and we readjust our leg position. Instead of blocking in the crook of the elbow, we slide our legs out and we control our training partner closer to the wrist. So when he tries to relock his hands, it's significantly more difficult for him. As always, if you feel you're losing control of this arm, don't be afraid to double up on it and get that 2-on-1 grip until things calm down. When you control a 2-on-1 and you control his wrist with your shin, it's almost impossible for him to lock his hand successfully. But if you're here, now it's quite easy, okay? Now, if he locks in this position, always understand you can lock here, but better still, over the top and pop the grip apart. This is a very, very useful method. But it's almost impossible for you to break the grip when he's over your knees. Now, if your opponent's strong, no amount of pushing is going to be effective. So it's very important from here. We always practice that skill of slipping our knee outwards. And then we turn our knee away. And from here, it's easy to break the grip apart. Okay? Now, when you get to a position like this, sometimes your opponent will employ different grips. Many of your opponents will go fingertip to fingertip, the 10-finger grip. Some will go palm to palm, and some will go wrist to wrist. In all cases, Loctite, wrist to wrist, in all cases, we should be able to break our opponent's grip using the strength of our leg and hands in the opposite direction. Slipping over the top and pushing. Palm to palm, similarly, point your knee away. Never point your knee at your opponent's hands. It's too easy for him to take his hands over the top and lock you in place. Always, we want our knee pointing out and away. Then we go in and pop the grip apart very, very easily. Sometimes when they lock wrist to wrist, sometimes in these situations, you can help your situation out by peeling your training partner's grip the same way you would in any other kind of locked hand situation, such as a body lock or what have you. When you look at your opponent's hand configuration, wrist to wrist always leaves an opening for you to grab all four fingers. In the sport of jiu-jitsu, it is illegal to peel individual digits. You are not allowed to do this, but you are allowed to grab all four at the same time. And then it's a very easy peel and split our opponent's hands apart. In the case of palm to palm, you can do similar work. You can cover all four fingers, and then from these situations, peel your opponent's grip apart quite easily. In the case of the 10-finger grip, it is almost impossible to successfully attack the fingers. However, it's very easy in these situations to lock up with a Kimura grip and pop the grip clear and find ourselves right back in that winning position. So these are some very realistic ways for us to break the grips and get back into a winning situation. Now, we're looking obviously at the back crucifix throughout this video, but of course, the back crucifix is intimately tied up with the rear mount position as well. Whenever you have one, you almost always have some kind of access to the other. You will be expected in many situations, working from back crucifix, to be able to make a transition into the rear mount position. Let's look at the classic way in which this occurs. From a situation where we have a back crucifix, a very common form of defense many of your opponents will be using this against you is for them to push up on top of you into situations like so. And this can make it difficult for us to hit many of our standard attacks. When we see this kind of thing going on, we're going to take advantage of the fact that his buttocks have come off the ground, putting a lot of space underneath his hips. And as a result, relatively easy for us to take what would normally be our wedging leg and place it here underneath our training partner's hip. All we have to do now is tilt our training partner over to the side. And as a result, we can quickly lock up. And now we have our opponent in a position where you have the rear mount still with the arm trap. So this is the perfect position in order to strangle people. Let's have a look at this from another angle. We'll start facing out this way, buddy. So here we are. We have the classic back crucifix. I see plus here to go into a standard kind of bridging escape. Do you remember the 3 strategies that our opponent can use when he goes to defend his position? This was the first one, bridging up on top of us. We're going to take our foot down to the mat, and we're going to take our second knee through and around underneath his lower back. And as a result, we can tilt this guy up and over to the side. Now we put our foot over the top of our training partner's hip, and from here, we can lock up a body triangle. If you feel your legs are too short for the body triangle, you can just bring your feet together. His arm is trapped. Not only is his arm trapped, but he's sitting on top of it. So when he goes to pull his arm free, it's hard. There's so much weight over it. It's pinned by the weight of our 2 bodies. It's really difficult. And from here, you're ready to finish. Okay? So that's one obvious sense in which anytime you have a back crucifix, if your opponent goes to bridge up on top of you, that's a great option for you to be looking for and to take. Now, it goes in the opposite direction too. Many is the time we have our opponent's back in the standard kind of back attack situation. And however it happens, we're in a situation where we capture our training partner's arm and lock over the top and start to threaten strangleholds. Your opponent will always be interested in the idea of beating that foot. But every time that occurs, you now find yourself right back in that classic back crucifix position. And from here, you can strangle out a back crucifix. Of course, you can expect your opponent now to go to defend back crucifix, and that opens them right up into what we saw previously, the idea of going in now and strangling from the rear mount position. So we can play these 2 positions against each other with a lot of success. And in fact, this will be one of the main things you'll be looking to do whenever you're dealing with the resistance of your opponent as he tries to defend himself in back crucifix. Now, we're looking at this idea that there are 3 essential strategies that an opponent can use in order to go into the best escapes from back crucifix. And a large part of what we're trying to do in this video is to give you the understanding of how to deal with these 3 directions that an opponent can take towards escape. We looked at the idea of an opponent locking hands and coming up on top of us. And we saw this leads into a slightly undesirable situation where you're seated and sitting on your training partner's arm. And we saw how to resolve those issues, how to make it difficult for one to get there, and how to deal with it if it should occur. Then we looked at the idea of an opponent takes another strategy, which is to bridge up on top of us. And we saw when they do that, they expose themselves to the rear mount position. It's very easy for us to slide into the space they've created and take the rear mount. Now let's look at the situation where an opponent slides down and away relative to our body. This is the third successful method of movement, which leads into good escapes. So let's have a look at it now. Okay. This time, our opponent takes the third method of escape, which is to slide down and away. Once I lose contact with the head and comes down here, first option for your opponent is to straighten out the arm, get a hold of you. Usually the back of the neck is one of the more favored grips to make. And then from here, they backflip over your body. This is kind of like a jiu-jitsu 101 method of escaping a crucifix. It's not a bad method. It can work. Even better, a little more realistic perhaps, is as your opponent starts the action of sliding away, the critical point is where his head makes it to the floor, like so. He extends the arm, grabs the back of the head, and this time he walks around the corner and pins you like so. So you just went from a very good situation to an absolutely terrible one in a very short period of time. So you have to take seriously your opponent when he starts sliding down the body, because if he knows what he's doing, he's going to translate that into some of the best escapes from that crucifix, and you can end up going from total offense into total defense in a very short period of time. So what should we be looking to do when your opponent slides all the way down and you feel you've lost control of the inside shoulder? Do you remember, guys, earlier in the video, we talked about the importance of controlling the inside shoulder, and in particular, wedging it with our elbow. And we saw that in situations where we control the wrist one-on-one, or two-on-one, or cupping the shoulder, or gripping a hold of our own neck and flexing like so, these were all good grips to ensure that our elbow stayed wedged inside our training partner's armpit. And we saw that if our opponent ever gets his elbow inside our elbow, this is a terrible thing, because now they can slide away and start escaping. Okay? So we saw that it's always vital that we keep that wedge underneath our training partner's arm. What's happening in these situations is that as your opponent slides down, that wedge becomes less and less effective. There is a critical point where Placido's head makes it to the mat, and now he gets his shoulder to the floor. Even the fact that I have my elbow in front means nothing now, because his shoulder has made it to the mat. Placido, could you extend your right leg so people can see?
No, yeah, sorry.
His right shoulder has made it to the mat. That's it. It's gone now. It's over. It's very easy for Placido now to grip the back of my head. It's not essential that he does this, but it is desirable. And then from here, he could either backflip or, even better, roll up onto the shoulder and pin you in a position like this. So what should we be doing from our perspective in these situations? Well, we saw earlier in the video, one good option is to make a switching game, where when I feel my right elbow is becoming less and less effective, we switch arms and we cup here underneath our training partner's shoulder. My left hand goes into his right shoulder at the rear deltoid, so that as Placido tries to go all the way down to the mat, you can drag him back. So that's certainly one good option. Another really good option is to make a switch into Kimura. Once our opponent starts sliding down, look how easily he can limp his arm out. We're going to capture and put all our focus on the near side arm. So as I lose the far side arm,